Hot Mic with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mic.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something. Is
Hot Mic. Hot Mic. On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo. Dom Izzo.
Good Tuesday morning. This is the final edition of January edition of Hot Mic on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com on a chilly start to the 31st of January 2023, a Tuesday morning. Apparently it's going to get above zero tomorrow, so we can celebrate that and then get bone chilling on Thursday. That's kind of the pattern we're in as we say so long to January and hello to February, which is always the start of the craziness. When February starts, that means state wrestling is right around the corner, which is true. We're 3 weeks out. And then it's into the submarine for tournament season in these parts, which is always a lot of fun. Welcome to our show, everybody. I am Dom Izzo, host of Hot Mic. We've got a packed show today. We had a lot of topics yesterday. We're going to hit some more here today. Senior Bowl practice begins in Mobile, Alabama later this morning. Former Bison All-American Cody Mauck will be on the field about 11 a.m. We're going to chat about that in our show today. Preview the big series this weekend for Bison men and women's basketball, including a couple of homecomings as well, which is going to be fun on the women's side. We'll get to that before we say so long. And it's time for most everyone, and I think myself included, to wake up on the Grant Nelson NBA hype train. I think most of us, we've taken, I don't know if it's for granted to see Grant's unreal athleticism going back to his high school days at Devil's Lake and his ability to dunk the ball and just the wingspan that he's had. But the last month, something different has happened. And now it's become a thing where ESPN has contacted me twice over the last 2 weeks. And I'm not bragging here. They're looking for video of Grant. And if they're doing that and the other things that are happening, which we're going to get into as our show goes on this morning, that means there's some significant buzz happening. So we'll dive into that. We've got more reaction on the 3-class proposal that was tweaked or adjusted, however you want to phrase it, over the weekend. We heard from the private school section yesterday, sector. We'll get some Class B reaction today. And I am focusing mostly on either schools or administrators that were not a fan of the initial plan to gauge the reaction on what they're seeing now and the appetite for this to move forward in 9 days' time, 8 days' time now. So we'll get into that as well. Normally we don't have a ton of Monday highlights to recap on a Tuesday. We do today because there were 2 Summit League makeup games last night because of the winter storm that happened right before Christmas. South Dakota State couldn't play Kansas City, and South Dakota couldn't play Oral Roberts. I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing to show you about the Oral Roberts game last night. They won by 50. 50 over South Dakota. South Dakota's not bad. And the Coyotes lost by 100 last night. The Jacks were in a nail-biter in Kansas City. We'll show you how this one played out last night. It went right down to the wire at the Swinney Rec Center. The Jacks actually opened up an 8-point lead on that William Kyle basket there to make it 45-37. It's 56-53. Shamari Allen starts going crazy for the Roos. Here he comes up with a steal, the dunk. Kansas City now leads the game 57-56. Now it's 59-57. Ruse off the miss. The putback dunk from Kyle there ties the game up at 59 with 4 minutes to go. It's 61-50. Look at this deep three there from Zeke Mayo. Made that one from downtown Springfield. SDSU's in front 62-61. Down one again. How about this? Just throw it at the basket and bank it in for Matt Mims and gives the Jacks a 2-point lead with under a minute to go. Kansas City wouldn't go away. This team is going to be tough. Allen with another three. Kansas City is back in front by 1 with under 30 seconds to go. Mayo draws a foul, hits both free throws. The Jacks are up 1. There's 1 second to go. They get the inbound to Allen, who nearly banks it in on the tip at the horn. And South Dakota State hangs on and beats Kansas City 67-66. The final score. And the Jackrabbits salvage 1 game on this 3-game roadie. You remember they lost at St. Thomas. They lost in overtime after blowing a 22-point lead. We showed you that, what happened to Western Illinois on Saturday. So here are the up-to-date standings as we now have no more makeup games to play. So everybody is up to date here as we head into the final month of the season. Oral Roberts may not lose, folks. I may take the May qualifier out of there. I don't think they're losing, much like what South Dakota State did last year. The Golden Eagles are 11-0. Western Illinois. Yes, Western Illinois holds the 2 spot. They have the tiebreaker over South Dakota State because of the head-to-head win. Remember, the Leathernecks have to go to Brookings still. The Jacks get to 7-4 with the win last night. There's North Dakota State in the 4 spot. Cannot underestimate how big the 2 games are for the Bison this week. At 6-4, Kansas City drops to 6-5. The Roos, remember, still have to go to Vermilion and Brookings and have another date with Oral Roberts. South Dakota, with that squeaker of a loss yesterday, drops to 5-6. They have the Bison coming up on Thursday in Vermilion. St. Thomas, then Omaha, Denver, and UND. Like I mentioned yesterday, 8 through 10 looks to be pretty much solidified. It's going to be between those 3 teams. After that, folks, it is an absolute up in the air. I have no idea what to tell you. 2 through 7 is going to be crazy. And just from the Bison perspective here, they get Western at home. They got to go to Brookings. They got to go to Kansas City. They got to go to Vermilion. Excuse me. And they get St. Thomas at home. That's tough. 2 of those 5 are at home. The other 3 on the road. I don't think anybody's touching Oral Roberts, so let's just set them aside. They've got a 4-game lead. They're closing in on potential could clinch the title here in the not-too-distant future, just with how things have started to separate here. And remember, the 1 and the 2 seeds, excuse me, when you win, if you win your opening round game, you get the day off on Sunday and don't have to play again till Monday if you're in the 1 or the 2 spot. So there's an added advantage there, whereas if you are seeded 3 through 6, you've got to play 3 straight days if you win. Got to play Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And we have seen before, the road to the championship is much harder if you are playing 3 straight days. Not impossible, harder. Just something to bear out here. And if you're just looking at this logically and how the bracket shapes up, you want to stay out of that 4 or 5 spot as much as possible. Because if you win, that means you're getting Oral Roberts in the semis. And if you want to try and make a run to Tuesday night, 2, 3, 6, that's where you want to be. 7, you don't, because you're playing that opening day of the tournament on that Friday. That's where you want to strive to here as the final month of the season gets going. But heck of a game there in Kansas City last night. It was also a heck of a game in Minneapolis. So I devoted resources and time. I was going to watch the end of the Wolves game last night. And I'm glad I did, except the ending stunk if you cheer for the Wolves. as they face Sacramento. This is the second end of a back-to-back here. They played Saturday night, and Minnesota won. We go late in this game. Anthony Edwards drives and scores. Here, the Timberwolves now have taken the lead late in this game. Sacramento, though, refused to go away. De'Aaron Fox is just a beast scoring there. Makes it a one-point game. It's 96-95. Edwards, though, played phenomenal last night. Knocks that shot down. But the Kings wouldn't go away. That three-pointer is good there from De'Aaron Fox. Now it's 101-99 Sacramento. Wolves are down 3. Why not? Jaden McDaniels left wide open, drills it, ties the game with 13 seconds left. I don't know what the Kings defense was doing. You leave the guy wide open. In the NBA, you're going to make that shot. Ties it up. We go to overtime because this shot from Fox was short. And so we play the extra session. But Sacramento there was phenomenal. Tied at 106 here. Keegan Murray, the pride of Iowa, knocks down the 3. Gives the Kings a 3-point lead. Now they're up 4. I mean, Fox is going to be an all-star for numerous reasons. That's another one. The floating jumper there makes it a 6-point lead. I don't know what the Wolves defense is doing there. Leaves somebody wide open. Lyles dunks it home. Sacramento goes and wins it. 118-111 is the final in overtime. So here are the up-to-date standings. This is amazing how this happens in the Western Conference. We talked about this last week of how it's literally going to change on a day-to-day basis here. The fluctuation is crazy. The Wolves, last Thursday, had moved up to the 5 spot. Now you lose a game and you drop to 9th. So Golden State at 5th. And by the way, they're a half game ahead of the Wolves. Dallas at 6, Phoenix at 7. The Pelicans, who, by the way, last week I think were in the 4 spot, now at 8. The Wolves 9, and then the Jazz and the Thunder. Outright craziness here. As it stands now, the Jazz would play the Wolves in the play-in game, and if you win that, you play the loser of the Suns and the Pelicans to make the NBA playoffs. Telling you now, there's 53 games in. They got 39 to go, and it's going to be like this the rest of the way. It really is. 29, sorry, my math's off. It's going to be this way the rest of the way because there doesn't look like anybody's going to get any kind of separation. Maybe Golden State. They're starting to heat up. The Warriors have won 3 in a row. But you look even from 3 down to, let's go one spot down to 12, Portland. The Lakers aren't even on this list, by the way. That's how bad the Lakers have been. They're 13th in the West right now. They are 3 games back of the Wolves. Just wildness is happening in the Western Conference, and that'll be fun to follow. Maybe not so much for Wolves fans, but for those of us that are just observers, it's going to be a crazy finish to the regular season of the Western Conference. I mentioned we are packed on our show today. Coming up in just a few minutes, we'll visit with Northern Cast Athletic Director Bryce Laxdal. He'll join us to give us his thoughts on the revised 3-class basketball proposal. No, he was not a fan. Northern Cast did not support the initial focus group plan. We'll get his thoughts on where he stands here with the survey out. Again, the athletic directors and superintendents have no, I can't say, they can give feedback here, but the voting power stands with the board here. They'll listen to their constituents, and obviously if it's overwhelming for yes, that would certainly help. And if it's not, then maybe this doesn't go through for next season. We'll visit with that coming up in a few minutes. Mike McFeely will be by at 9:35. We'll chat on that Grant Nelson draft chatter and the Summit League race to the finish with a month to go. That's coming up at 9:35. Kyle Emanuel's back with us at 10 o'clock. It's a busy week here, as we talked about. Senior Bowl practice week underway. All-Star game, also the East-West Shrine game is on Thursday night in Las Vegas. Kyle's an alum of that. We'll chat all about the now draft season underway coming up at 10 o'clock. And at 10:45, Grafton native and USD freshman Walker Demers will join us. She is playing for the Coyotes. She should be a senior in high school, but she graduated early, enrolled early in Vermilion, and now playing early for the Coyotes and starting. We'll visit about how the last 4 or 5 months had unfolded for her coming up at 10:45. Remember, USD plays the Bison coming up on Thursday night at the Shack. So a busy show to get to here over the next hour and 50 minutes or so. We'll take a break. We're off and rolling. Hot Mike returns after this on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com. It's a Tuesday night, so that means there's plenty going on, including our WDAY Extra Game of the Week. This should be a fun one in Region 1. Central Cass and Kindred. Our coverage begins tonight, 7:30 on WDAY Extra. You can also stream it at Inforum.com or the WDAY Sports Plus tab as we begin the turn for home with the Class B region tournaments just over less than a month away on the girls' side and a little over a month on the boys' side, which is a perfect segue to dive back into the big topic we were discussing yesterday with the revised 3-class basketball plan that was sent out on Friday to athletic directors and superintendents around the state. A survey went out as well to gauge the feedback of this with a potential for a vote on 3 classes potentially a week from tomorrow. If not then 2 weeks after that on February 22nd for potential implementation for the 2023-24 school year that would increase by 2 more state tournaments if it was to go through for that year. It's our pleasure to welcome back to our show. I love technology. It always works at the last minute. Northern Cass AD Bryce Laxdal is good enough to join us again. Bryce was on shortly, I think, after the official meeting went down. Northern Cass was not in favor of the initial plan, so we're glad to have you back on, bud. Tell me your thoughts on seeing what the high school association has done and where does Northern Cass stand with this one?
Hey, thanks for having me back, Dom. Appreciate all the coverage you've had throughout all of this and letting both sides have a place to voice their opinions. And it's really been, you've kind of been the voice of reason, if you say, throughout and letting everybody come on. So it's been great.
I appreciate that.
We're really lucky. The state of North Dakota is lucky to have you. I really like the revisions made to the new plan. There's we touched on compromises that are going to need to be made. And I think in terms of Northern Cass, there's 3 big things that we were worried about. The multiplier really hurt us. The competitive balance, and then there wasn't the ability to opt up and down. And 2 of those are gone. And the competitive balance now with the ability to opt up and down is there. I still, and I'm always going to have a problem with the middle class. I think that middle class right now, there's still too big of a gap. You're going to end up playing a team that's 4 times the size you, whereas right now in Class A it's 4.2, and they said that's too big. So I think there's still some discrepancy there, but then you have the ability with that the reclassification group that they're going to make, that you can opt up and down. So I think there's got to be compromise both ways. And I really think the High School Activity Association and the board of directors did a good job of listening to the schools that were at that meeting. That was a tense meeting. I mean, there was a lot of energy in that room, and you could feel it. So I think they did a good job of listening to everybody's voice of reason, because it could have passed that day, and I think it would have. But they wanted to make sure that they made some changes and they listened to everybody's input. And I still don't agree with everything, but in a compromise, you're not going to.
Bryce, so your region now, you're playing Wahpeton, Valley City, Central Cass, Kindred, Lisbon. Those are schools you already play. Oak Grove, Weimar, Lidgerwood, Hankinson on the girls' side. What do you make of that? You mentioned competitive balance. Obviously, Wahpeton and Valley City are class, as we know them now, Class A schools. That's not going to be the case if this goes through. Is that where is that your concern there? My
concern isn't really with Valley City. WAP is fine, don't love it. It's more Devil's Lake and Turtle Mountain and Watford City, and the ability in a couple years, Jamestown is going to be in there.
Likely. Yep.
Right. They maybe opt up. They've been pretty successful the last few years, but I just think that's a pretty big stretch for a competitive balance. But like we talked about, you'll have the ability to opt up and opt down, and some programs are going to have girls that stay in the A and boys that are in the B, and then vice versa. So I think that is a really good compromise to that. You're going to have to, teams are going to have to kind of take it on the chin for a couple years at least, because just by looking at, there's teams that are going to struggle in each class that they're in right now for the first 2 years.
I know last time you and I visited, you were worried about travel specifically with Northern Cass. Has this helped out at all or not so much?
It definitely helps out because we voted on the 4 regions, and there was 96% of the schools that were in the new class, that our new class, the A, that wanted to do 4 regions to help with travel. Now we have to decide as, a new region if we're going to play everybody twice. Well, that was one of the reasons that Class A wanted to get rid of it. So I'm not in favor of playing everybody twice. That was one of their main arguments. And now they're saying play them twice. So, I don't want to play them twice. I want to have, that freedom to schedule. We'll be looking to play, maybe a couple teams out west on an overnight or something like that. And then we still want to play some of the B teams around here. That if they're still willing to play us, and I know some of the A's don't want to do that, and so I like having that open schedule and the ability to, maybe some tournaments pop up, some shootouts, that sort of stuff. I'd like to have the ability to get into some of those.
Bryce, I had some reaction last night seeing the story on the news that the high school association caved to the private schools on this. Do you agree with that?
Not at all. I think the privates and schools like Northern Cass didn't even have a voice in the first, in the first go around. I think the high school activities, sat down and met with them, listened to their concerns, and they came to a compromise that it sounds like, you listened to Tanner yesterday, that they're on board with, and I think that's important. You can't. They're still part of the High School Activity Association. They're still member schools. You have to take, their views into consideration, and I think this plan does that. And, I know the plan before had the 60%, but you could have wrote any plan that had the privates playing anywhere and it was going to get 60%. I'll that's a hill I'm willing to die on.
Well, let me ask you this though. Do you feel like some Class Bs may not support this because it's different from the original plan?
I think that the Class Bs that are left in the old Region 6 will, because they're going to have our Demers and Minot Ryan still left in that region.
Right.
And, Minot Ryan is really good this year. They've been good for as long as I can remember. Our Demers with Feller was in state really championships.
They were really good.
Yep. And they've been in a couple region championships here after he left. So those 2 teams, they're going to be good out there. They just are. But, it says there's the possibility to force up. So after a few years, success points, Cavaliers looking at it right now in football, are they pushed up? And then, then there is that ability for, some other teams to come out of there. So I think, that is a good compromise, but I wouldn't be surprised if, there's some schools out there that, aren't in favor of it.
You and I chatted about this, and I talked about it yesterday. Now the format to get to a state tournament is going to be vastly different. I actually like the fact that if you're going to play third place games, have them mean something. So now the third place winner, let's say in Region 1, would face the runner-up in Region 2 for a spot at state. What do you make of that, of added tournament games to try to get to the state tournament?
I love that. I think that's a great idea. Whoever came up with that idea deserves a pat on the back because there's been a lot of talk, and you hear all the time, why you play in this third and fourth place game? It means nothing.
Yes.
There's no competitiveness in it. It's just kind of a glorified all-star game. So now that it means something, I mean, it's going to be really fun to watch. It makes every game important. Every game means something. And then, there's some questions. Where are you going to play that play-in game? Is it going to be at the higher seeds place? But yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. Whoever came up with that was really thinking outside the box.
Before I let you go, your school is the reigning volleyball champions. Do you imagine volleyball gets brought up here for 3 classes in the not too distant future?
I would assume that they would. I think that this is kind of a plan that is going to be kind of the guinea pig. And once they feel they have all the kinks worked out, I think that volleyball will probably follow in a couple years. And I think you'll probably see that reclassification committee come into play in every every sport that has more than two classes, because now you're just not stuck on a number. Like that 325 was the number.
Right.
Now, the 162.5 or it doesn't have to be a set number. You can bring into success and that sort of stuff. So I would assume that volleyball will probably follow.
Let me give your last, before we go here, your gut feeling on this. If they do vote, if the board does vote next Wednesday, is this happening?
I think if it goes to the board, it'll vote, or it'll pass, and it'll be in next year. It'll be interesting to see the feedback after we talked about do they want to give ADs a year to kind of work out the kinks in the schedule, because it's going to be, when it's going to be tough to schedule. It's doable. It's going to be tough. Can Jamestown handle a state tournament right away next year? They need a whole year to make those upgrades, or can they play? So there's those things that to take into consideration too. But I think if it goes to the board, it passes.
I always appreciate the time, my man. Thanks so much for coming on, and I know we're going to talk again in the not too distant future. Thanks for doing this morning. Okay.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Dom.
That's Bryce Laxdal giving us a few minutes here, Northern Cass Athletic Director, on his thoughts on the three-class proposal. And you could clearly tell there, Northern Cass was not in favor of the original one. That's certainly they are in favor of this. And if there are more schools that are hopping on board there, you got a feeling that this is going to happen next week. We're due for a break. We'll take one now. Mike McFeely around the bend. Chat some NBA draft chatter around Grant Nelson, where the Summit League race, if it is one, for the last month. We'll do that when Hot Mike returns on a Tuesday morning after this.
Seen the future, and he was wearing number 5, and I ain't talking about Robbie Grimsley, folks.
Took out the muffins, took out the trail mix, took out the cookies. They stole the monster cookies.
You good? Okay.
Is there a reason why I'm out of the shot?
Look at that.
Isn't that great? Old man yells.
Baseball sucks. These kids today.
Right? As we welcome in Mike McFeely on a chilly Tuesday morning onto our Hot Mike studios, as he usually joins us in the 9:35 window. Good morning. It's good to see you.
I've been doing this stuff for a while because in those photos I have more hair than I do now. I'm measuring time by my receding hairline. It's pretty amazing.
Man. I do it as well with this camera shot with like the bald spot here. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, no, it gets worse. I used to have a full head of,
man. We're all set.
It's great. My wife was cleaning out. That's a good name for a band, by the way. The receding hairlines. My wife was cleaning out a closet or something the other day, and she ran across a couple of old photo albums, and she, being Michelle, just, tender, loving woman, which she is.
Yes.
But she calls me down and goes, "Look at these pictures." They're like from 20 years ago, right? It's like the first thing she says, "Look how young you look." It was 20 years ago. I mean, Emma's in the photos, and guess what? She was one in the photos, so look how young she looks.
Yeah.
And I can't come back and say, "Oh, Michelle, look how young you look," because that would result in
you're done,
things
man.
stabbed in my neck, a la Joe Pesci, and
Casino, or putting the guy's head in the vice. Yeah.
Oh, no, I think the pens in the neck was Goodfellas.
Goodfellas, yes,
that was the shine box guy. No, that was the guy. No, that was the.
Yeah,
that was the pen. Is this your pen? And then bleep bleep bleep, and it was like then Joe Pesci just
took matters into his own hands.
Stabs the guy to death with a pen.
Took matters into his own hands there,
as he often does in the movies.
Oh goodness. There's no easy transition out of stabbing anybody to what I want to talk about. Well, South Dakota's men's basketball team got beat to death, it seemed like last night. Holy cow.
Oral Roberts took a pen off the bar and, and
50 points?
Yeah, they lost, was it 103 to 53? And that matters because North Dakota State's next game is in Vermilion on Thursday. And, you could look at South Dakota's been on the road for like their last 3 games. I think they're going to end up playing 5 games in 10 days.
Right.
They're going to be down in Tulsa yesterday. I don't know what time they got back last night. It's already Tuesday. Yeah, it's all the travel, all that's the, mid-major college. They ain't flying, private Lear jets.
No.
They're probably taking a bus or whatever, okay? But when you're down 50 in the second half, that's probably when you might say, okay, starters, you're out. Go ahead and rest.
Yes.
Because we're going to lose this game.
We ain't coming back.
And so I think if you're the Bison, if you're Dave Richmond, you'd rather see a 90-89 game so that all the
Overtime
starters are
game.
in and a grind and everything else.
Right.
Didn't work out that way last night.
Eric, can you bring up the Summit League standings, the men's standings here for a second? Honestly, they would prefer if they were playing the Jacks, honestly, tomorrow night on Thursday night, because SDSU played a grinder last night with Kansas City. Yeah. So now here we look at things right now, and we've talked about it. Ideally, if you are NDSU, you want to stay as far away from Oral Roberts as you can.
Long as you can. So you want to finish second or third, correct?
Or even sixth if you wanted to. But you know what I mean?
I don't think they're going to finish sixth, but maybe.
I mean, look at how convoluted this is. Western Illinois got to give some attention to what the Leathernecks. Now, they've been great at home. We're going to see how well they play away from
I was going to say,
right?
they are really good at home, and I think 4 of their last 6 games are on the road.
Right.
And that includes a Dakota's trip.
Correct.
Up to obviously North and South, North Dakota and North Dakota State.
And they have to play the Jacks
and they have to play
the
South
Coyotes
Dakota
on the road.
and Coyotes.
Right.
So their schedule is not easy.
It's going to come back around.
I don't know what their
there.
home games are.
I think they
are they Oral and Kansas City?
I might be, actually. I'll look on that
so
for a second.
But anyway, the opportunity for North Dakota State to finish second or third is still there. There's no doubt about that. They have a tough road,
by the
too.
way. It is Kansas City and Oregon.
Yeah,
Still have to come to Macomb.
So if those are the last 6 games for Western, I mean, are they going to go 3-3 in those games? Which is fine. Then they finish 10-7. That's perfectly. They'd take that, I think, in a heartbeat.
Yep.
And North Dakota State's schedule is not easy with a trip to South Dakota for 2 games, and they have to go to Oral, Roberts, and Kansas City as well. And so the Bison are also looking at a very difficult finish.
Kansas City's going to be tough. Kansas City's going to throw a monkey in the wrench. They're going to beat somebody. I think in Sioux Falls. I think
they could. I mean, we'll see. It's all the pairings. We'll see how it goes.
You're
we
right.
say this every year.
I know.
We say every year that last year we thought Kansas City was going to be, and they did nothing. Nope. They just didn't have anything left in the tank, and it's a whole different deal going to Sioux Falls.
Yeah, you're right. The environment is different.
They're at the very end of the season. I don't know how invested some of these guys are at the end of the year, and we'll see how it all turns out. The point for local fans here is that the Bison have a chance to get second or third. I don't know that it's going to matter in Sioux Falls.
That was my last question.
I think Oral Roberts is 2 notches better than everybody else, and that includes South Dakota State. Beating the Jacks in Sioux Falls is always going to be tough. We'll see how they do in Brookings here coming up, but I just don't know if the Jacks have enough in the tank with all the injuries they've had and all of that.
What does it say to you if we have it for the second year in a row, the champion of the league goes unbeaten? Is that not great for the league, or is this, hey, there's one really great team that was just way better than everybody else?
Well, I don't know that it matters in terms of the league. The trouble with me is I don't know that there's any second. I thought last year North Dakota State was pretty good as the second place team. I don't know that there's a second place team this year, again, in part because of South Dakota State's injury situation and guys apparently not coming back to the team like Luke Apple and things like that. Next year I'm talking about. And so I don't know how that's going to go, but I don't know that it reflects in the league. I think if you're the league, if you're Josh Fenton, I think you really like the fact that Oral Roberts might get they might get an 11 seed, or if they win the league, everybody else is going to be a 16 seed.
Correct.
Or a play-in.
They're playing on Tuesday night in Dayton.
Right. That's a possibility. Whoever else, if the Bison somehow get through this and win the Summit League tournament, they might be playing in Dayton, and for sure they're going to be a 16 seed in the first round.
Yeah, you're right. If right now I think Lenardi, the bracketology, is at 12 right now for Oral Roberts,
which makes sense. But if they run the table in the league, and I mean, maybe they get to an 11 or a 10. I don't think so, but they're probably a 12-5, which is a good spot to be.
On the Bison basketball front, we were showing the Another highlight reel from Grant Nelson on Friday night from the game against UND. I'm not humble bragging here or anything, that ESPN called this weekend for video of Grant Nelson. They've called before. Normally it's football.
Yeah.
They have not called me before on basketball, which tends to go on the conversation we had last week on the viral video that went out that you did a story on a couple weeks ago, that it seems the attention train is going this way on number 4 for North Dakota State.
It sure was a couple weeks ago, for sure. I don't know. I mean, if ESPN's looking for video, there's a reason why. We've talked about this before, but what the viral video did from the NBA connected type people I've talked with is it shined attention on him because they really didn't know much about him, from what I was told. Now you can say, well, really NBA teams didn't know about a guy, and all of a sudden they're all over him because of a viral video. I think there's some skepticism in some circles about that. But what I've been told is that they've been forced to look at him now. Is that they've been forced to take a look. Whatever they think of him, that's a whole different story.
Okay.
But they've been forced to look at him. I have also been told by someone who should know, connected to the NBA, that he's going to get a chance with some NBA franchise at some point. Doesn't mean he's going to be drafted in 2023. That's not what I'm saying. I don't think he's going to be drafted. Everything I've heard is he's not a draftable player at this point. But he's also only, 21 years old, 20 years old. So he'll get, with the NBA the way it's set up now with the D-League teams, right? There's a whole, NBA-owned developmental league.
Minor league, right? Yeah.
There is the opportunity for, different types, 10-day contracts and two-way contracts. And they've got it all set up so that they can find these guys and give them time. You don't have to be drafted in the first round and then all of a sudden play.
Right.
And after 2 years, if you don't make it, you're a washout and a wasted draft pick. They're looking at Grant Nelson and saying, what's he going to be when he's 25 years old? I've been told that by multiple people, that it's not what's he looking like today.
Right now. Yeah.
It's what he's looking like when he's 25 years old. So, could they get him in the D-League, have him play for a couple of years, say, okay, all right, let's move him up on a 10-day contract? Or do they have him in the D-League for a couple of years and they say, he's just not going to develop enough for us to... And he still can make money in Europe.
Right.
He still can make money in Turkey and wherever else and play basketball.
Okay, I was under, going into this season, that this was going to be it for him here. I thought he would take his talents maybe to another a Power 5 school to enhance it that way. What's your gut telling you from what you've asked on this? Is he come back here? Does he go to another college, or does he go professional?
Okay. So keep in mind that in basketball, you can declare for the NBA draft.
Very different than the NFL,
right?
Yep.
And you can go work out with teams. You can do the whole. You can have an agent.
All feedback.
You can do all of that. And then if you decide, I'm not going to go. Don't feel comfortable with that. You can go back and play college. If I was Grant Nelson, and I'm not. Why not do that?
Absolutely right.
I mean, why not just go work out for teams? Go work out for somebody who might want to take a chance on you. And they might tell them, we're not going to draft you, but sign this contract and we'll, go pro and we'll go stick you in the D-League and you can get your professional career started now. Or you can come back, as you said, and you could transfer to a Power 5 school and test your game and maybe up your game,
right? And
prove you can play against a higher level of competition, and then maybe you get more draftable. Or you can come back to NDSU and say, you know what, I'm going to be who I am,
right.
And so I'm going to play with the place that kept me. I think for sure he's going to test the draft waters. And I again don't think he's going to get drafted. I'm not so sure he wouldn't come back to NDSU.
Okay,
and that's. Nobody has told me that.
That's just your gut there. Yeah.
I don't have any secret info here. I don't know that he's lived in that world where there's this immense amount of pressure to go the AAU circuit and that whole deal. I mean, he's done some of that, but not to the extent of some of these top recruits. So
we've lived this the last couple of years with Max Asmus, who has tested it and come back to Oral Roberts. Shireman declared, remember last year, tested it and then said, all right, I'm not going to go to back to South Dakota State. I'm going to go to Creighton to
Yep.
spend. So we've seen
And make
both
some
ways.
good NIL
right,
money,
and
by
make
the
some
way.
money there. So we've seen both ends
Yep.
of that over the last couple of years.
And that's the other thing. I have no idea what Grant Nelson's situation is in terms of his family or anything else, but the opportunity would be there for him. You would think that if somebody wants in a Power 5 or a Creighton or the Big East or whatever wants to take a chance and say you can come here and play, and here's $150,000 in NIL money. That obviously that would make a difference as well. I don't know that it's a given that he's going to leave to go to a Power 5.
Okay.
I think it's a given he's going to test the waters.
Okay.
And maybe I'm being naive and maybe I'm being optimistic for NDSU's basketball program, but I we'll see.
It's fascinating to talk about. We've not had this on the basketball side of things. It's really exciting. Honestly, it's going to be fun to play out here over the next 6 weeks on what's going to go there. Let's take a break. We'll wrap up hour one. Back with Mike McFeely right after this on Hot Mike on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com. All right, we got to chat some football as we wrap up hour one.
Do we have to?
Yeah, because I think you like this story.
Let's make this into a basketball town.
Hey, we've been trying.
Let's make this into a basketball town.
By the way, promotions have seemed to work at the last couple of North Dakota State men's games.
I'm going to say this. Not that I've looked this up or anything. Since I wrote my column saying, hey, people go to the games, please?
Yep.
Bison have averaged 3,100 fans for those three games.
3 games?
Yes, they averaged
Oral
about
Roberts,
like
Kansas City, and
1,000
UND.
before that.
Okay.
Had nothing to do with the fact it's Oral Roberts and UND. Nothing. It was me. It was me.
Hey,
my column that got people in there.
Let's see if it works, because the next two is Omaha and Denver. That's not exactly going to draw people.
You doubting me?
No.
Are you doubting me?
I want to see if they
My
keep
funny
coming.
ha-ha?
I want to see if they keep coming. So
move that pen, pal.
USA Today story today on our buddy Dion out in Boulder.
Okay.
42 new scholarship players coming in. The biggest class of newcomers in recorded school history. And he may not be done. Sanders already signed or gained commitments from 23 players from other four-year colleges in December and January. This is exactly what we thought was going to happen. But by the way, that's not even the most in the Pac-12. Arizona State's got a new coach. 46 newcomers and 26 transfers that are going to the Sun Devils.
So, and a year ago, Jed Fish did the same thing at Arizona. In the Pac-12. This is modern college football. I'm not making a judgment. Like it, hate it, whatever.
That's where we're at.
Deion Sanders, in specific, is going to be modern college football. Why would you go into a place that won one game last year and say, okay, everybody come on back? Why would you do that?
Right.
I mean, Deion took a bunch of crap for the video that came out, and part of it rightly so. I mean, but that's what he does. That's who he is. But
it worked.
In modern college football, why would you go into a place as a new coach who came in because you were losing so many games and keep the same team? You don't have to anymore. You don't have to. I wouldn't do that in FCS. I mean, Bobby Petrino. Bobby Petrino was this, for whatever reason, was this hated figure among some in the Valley, the fan base and the media. It's like, why? He went into an awful program. And within a year, they were in the playoffs.
Made them good. Yep.
And then the next year they made the playoffs 2 years in a row after not making the playoffs for 30 years.
Correct.
Again, not my preference, but I'm old, but that's the rules. It's just the way it is.
The way it works, man.
Right.
And if you can use it to your advantage, go for it.
And at some point, hate to tell Bison fans this, they're going to have to do more than they're doing now because we've seen what happened this offseason. And I hate to tell this to the cocky Jackrabbit fans down in Brookings because they only lost one guy and he was a backup. It's going to hit you too. Okay, so you can do all the chest thumping you want, whether you're NDSU fans or Jackrabbit fans or the staff in Brookings about how you're retaining all these guys and you're great and all this stuff.
Right.
It's going to happen at some point.
And we said that about NDSU, honestly. We said that it was going to hit the Bison at some point. Here it is. It's come home to roost now. And only a matter of time before, hey, those guys in Brookings, South Dakota are pretty good. Go look at those guys.
Yeah, gosh. Gosh, I wonder if Isaiah Davis has gotten any phone calls. I wonder if Mark Gronowski's gotten any. illicit text messages. I wonder if Amar Johnson or Garrett Greenfield or Adam Bach, they've all, I'm sure, had some sort of, backdoor text message from a burner phone. I mean, Isaiah Davis, do you think he would fit in? He's from
Joplin, Missouri.
Missouri. You think he'd fit in at Nebraska or Kansas State? Or
University of Missouri, even, his hometown?
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
give me a break.
Of course he would.
Yeah, it's only and Gradowski from Naperville, Illinois. Think that might work there at Northwestern or Illinois, somewhere in the Big Ten. They would play. That guy would work out okay.
Yeah. At some point, they're going to get stung. Is my point.
Yep, I agree on that. I was interested, and we're going to talk more about this when Kyle comes in. Dane Brugler's story yesterday on The Athletic on Cody Mauch being one of the most intriguing prospects at the Senior Bowl this week, but also not at tackle, at center, which is a position he's never played.
No, but it's all they can teach him how to do that.
Correct.
Right? I mean, I'm not going to say it's not hard, but if you've played on the offensive line and you have the athletic skills that he has and the footwork that he has and the size he has, but I mean, NFL tackles are just huge,
monster
huge
humans.
men. And that's last year, Matt Waletzko from UND, he was not nearly as polished or finished as a Cordell Volson. And I said this last year at the time. I said, Volson might go higher in the draft and he's going to play more right away.
Which happened.
Which also happened because Waletzko, but what the attraction for Waletzko was his wingspan was 37 yards or something. And so you can't teach that. You can teach Cody Mauch how to be a center, I would guess. You can't teach him to get longer arms or to get taller.
Real quick, only because I know you started the football year down at in Eagan at Vikings training camp when the 49ers were there. And I only bring this up because now the 49ers season is over and Trey Lance was not the starting quarterback at the end. Brock Purdy got them to the NFC title game. Turns out now he needs UCL surgery, which is Tommy John surgery. And the 49ers are right back in the same mix as they were when you were there last August. My question is Trey Lance going to be the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers next year?
It's funny, and I was talking about this with somebody yesterday, it would almost have been provided more clarity if Purdy would have played it in the game and then either played great or played
lost.
poorly
Yep.
what. Then you could say, okay, he's not the big game Brock Purdy we thought he was. Then he gets hurt.
Yeah.
He's going to have major arm surgery to his throwing arm.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And so that's a 6-month deal minimum. And so that puts you into what?
July. Right. We're in July or August
and then
now.
training camp is opening. If Brock Purdy was healthy right now, I'd say I think that they're going to move on from Trey Lance because how can you not do that? Now it's same thing.
It's right back in the same
same thing. So I wouldn't count out Trey Lance yet.
It's just fascinating what's going on there.
Oh, it's
you know what I mean? We're 3 years into this, and he's played a total of 5 or 6 games.
5 games or 6 games.
And going back to NDSU, then he's the one game in 2020. So he's played 7 football games over 3 years.
Yep.
That is crazy.
And his games were in the FCS, against lesser competition.
Correct.
Western Illinois is not the Big Ten.
Nope.
It's no matter what you say, it just
Central Arkansas is not playing Alabama.
You can go from NDSU to the NFL. That's obviously proven, but the level of competition is nowhere near what teams in the Big 12 or SEC or ACC or Big 10 are seeing on a week-to-week basis.
Awesome stuff, bud. Thanks so much for coming by. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
For having me.
Mike McFeely joining us each and every Tuesday here on Hot Mike. We'll take a break. We'll start hour 2. Kyle Emanuel by as we get ready for Senior Bowl coverage with practices beginning in about an hour down in Alabama. We'll do that when we come back on WDAY Extra at Inform.com.
Hot Mike on the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
He's on the all-tape team, day 3 version. Yeah, Bill and I, we were just talking about it. We love this player. Man, this guy makes plays.
Emanuel was in that backfield.
Kick is up and it's blocked. That's a live ball, scooped up by North Dakota State. Kyle Emanuel takes it all the way down to the 5-yard line.
I remember I was getting recruited. Coach Bull told me, if you come here, I think you'll win a national championship. He never said anything about 4.
Great to have Kyle Emanuel back with us here on this Tuesday morning. We got a lot to get to. You think football season is over? I always find myself saying it never really ends anymore, does it?
No, not really. No, I mean,
I
was talking to my wife about this the other day because she's not a huge fan of football. She liked watching when I was playing, and I was like, honey, there's this. It was in the second half. I was like, there's a game and a half left, basically, and then you don't have to watch football for a long time. She's like, oh, what? 3 months, 4 months? It's going to be right back on. It was like, well, in the eyes of a fan, that's a long time.
Correct. Well, and this year is even different because the XFL is coming back in next month.
USFL,
and then the USFL is back in April. So, I mean, there is depending on how much you want your football, there is literally no lull until training camp.
I don't think I'll subject her to that, but she might have to watch some golf.
Would you watch it? Are you going to watch any of those other leagues?
I might. I'm not going to.
The XFL, I'm interested to see what they do again because I know the NFL ripped off some of the XFL ideas 3 years ago before it shut down.
Going back to their beginning days, I think they did too, and some of the camera angles and different things that they did. So I'll probably tune in, but once football ends for me, it's golf season. And the Masters will be coming up, and
it is.
The Waste Management's the same weekend as the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I'll be watching more golf, I think, once the NFL season's over.
Okay, so let me still dive into your football brain, though, from what you saw on Sunday. And I just ended the conversation with Mike talking about the 49ers deal and the Brock Purdy injury, which is, this is not a tough or an easy rehab. This is a 6-month. This is for baseball pitchers know full well. It's Tommy John surgery. You see the play that it happened on with Hassan Reddick, by the way. I don't know why they were blocking him with a backup tight end, but that's another issue for another day. And this is a real deal now, Kyle, because we talked last time you were here that if Purdy got the 49ers to the Super Bowl, I think he's the guy for the 49ers in 2023. Yeah. But he got hurt, and he didn't play, and I think now they're back in the same odd boat of, like, who's going to be the quarterback in 2023?
It's such an odd situation in San Francisco because they've probably felt for a while now like we're a quarterback away. They thought that with Garoppolo, and then Garoppolo played well for many years, but he was just always hurt. Okay, so when we trade up, we get Trey Lance. Now he's hurt.
Yeah.
And now if you're a 49ers fan, you got to be just, you got to be going insane at this point because you've had such a good team for so long, and the defense and the running game and Kyle Shanahan and everything that they can do offensively, and you made it to the NFC Championship game with a third-string quarterback, and yet you're still in this position, and now people are talking about, is Tom Brady going to go there? But yeah, it definitely throws a wrench in some things. I think at this point, Brock Purdy didn't play particularly well the game before. He gets hurt in this game. He has limitations, right? Like there's a reason he was the last pick. And I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback or that he can't play in this league because he proved that he can. And it's not even up for my opinion anymore. But I think with this injury now, and him not being able to do anything in the offseason, I mean, that gets you all the way.
We're talking August.
To training camp.
We're talking August probably now.
And I don't know where Trey is at with his rehab processes. I don't know. It's kind of a mess, and I'm not sure what they're going to do. I would think, I think this would bode well for Trey in a way in terms of because people are already talking about, they're going to trade him.
Yeah.
I think people need to kind of slow down a little bit, give him a chance. Hopefully his rehab is going well. If he can go through OTAs and everything and come back healthy, he could hopefully be your guy going into 2023.
So just for your playing days, when do you really start ramping up for the season? Is it right when you get ready back for OTAs that, okay, I'm going to get back into playing shape now? Or is it by the time OTAs are done and then getting ready for training camp?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a gradual climb. It's a little bit different in the NFL in terms of, and I'm sure we've talked about this before, but during the offseason before OTAs, you're completely on your own. You could sit on the couch the entire time if you wanted to, so it's really weird. So everyone's different. I always tried to take January basically completely off. I'm not even really working out, maybe some very light things, but not really
just
doing
getting your body healthy.
Exactly.
Right?
And then used February as kind of the month to get back into it a little bit. Then once you get into March, April, you're getting closer to OTAs.
Yep.
And at that point, it was to me, it was the season that basically started.
Okay.
Because then you go OTAs all the way up until June.
Mid-June,
and then you have a month off. Well, you can't take a month off and you're right into camp. So it's at this point, it's already, I got to be ready to go. Now, you don't have to be in game shape necessarily, but you want to be building. It's always on your mind that, once OTA started for me, it was like the new season had started.
See, because with the Purdy injury, like you literally can't do anything until training camp. That's the concerning part, especially for a guy who throws the ball and it's his throwing arm, that and you don't know where Trey's at. I know he had the second surgery. That was to remove some of the screws in there that they put in for the first surgery. I don't know if that's a complication or not, but we don't know where he's at on recovery process either, like you brought up. So, I mean, we're not that far away from starting this whole cycle all over again, and we're going to get to the draft. We're going to talk about it here in a second. I don't know. Maybe Garoppolo comes back again.
Maybe. He might. Yeah, because, again, like you said, if you don't know where Trey is at with his process, are you going to go into the season with two quarterbacks coming off of injury?
Major injuries, by the way.
Right.
These are not minor things that are happening.
Yeah, or do you go get a free agent? Do you draft someone? Do you just roll with another like an undrafted rookie that you think, okay, well, they'll be the third or fourth guy? I don't know. And that's why I said, at the top of the show, it's you got to be going insane if you're a 49ers fan. You have to with everything they've dealt with at that position.
I know for people that don't know, on the actual day of the game, how many guys are actually dressed? It's
46.
46.
Yeah, and 53 are on the active roster.
But only 46 are actually dressed.
Only 46 can dress.
So of that, who typically would be like the third string quarterback then in a situation like that from your playing days?
For my playing days, it was Keenan Allen. He was our emergency quarterback. He used to take a couple reps every now and then during practice, red zone stuff, and he could actually throw it pretty well.
No kidding.
He was honestly, it was like, I know he was not going to know the offense as well as Phillip Rivers, but like in terms of like arm talent, he had some. He definitely had some. So he was because we always. I think there was a couple of games where Phillip went into the game dinged up, so they dressed three quarterbacks, thinking there's a good chance. But other than that, we always dressed two with the Chargers.
So that's it's not an NFL rule. It's just pretty much you want to save as many guys as you can. You're not going to dress three.
You could dress 10 quarterbacks if you wanted to.
If you wanted to.
I think there is a rule with offensive linemen now, like you can dress. They changed the rule. I think you could dress out like 48 guys with the stipulation that like 9 of them have to be offensive linemen or something like that. I'd have to go back and check. But most teams, for the most part,
are just
you don't want to dress 3 quarterbacks and have 2 guys that aren't playing special teams. They're not like guys that dress play. Pretty much outside of the quarterback,
right?
The backup quarterback, because you think
you play defense and special teams.
If you're if you're not starting on offensive defense, you're guaranteed you're on at least one special teams, if not probably more. So guys that dress play. There's almost no one that doesn't play that dresses, and so that's why if you dressed in 2 quarterbacks, now you're taking 2 roster spots away of guys that are most likely not going to play unless a situation like that happens.
Well, that's the interesting part of obviously what brought up, and it was. On fire on social media on Sunday was they got to get the emergency quarterback rule back in the NFL, where to have a third guy that is strictly an emergency, which I think the NFL will take a hard look at because I
think it's a good idea.
You don't want to have that in any game, let alone the championship game, and you have that on display on Sunday afternoon.
I agree, 100%. I think, like I just talked about with the offensive lineman, there should be a stipulation that you can dress a third quarterback and it does not count against your number.
Yeah.
With the stipulation like that person can't come in and play a special teams or something like they are the third string quarterback and they can only come in if the other 2 get hurt.
I was wondering why Shanahan waited. I'm not the only one on just get direct snapping to Christian McCaffrey and let's go because he can throw the ball. I just wondering why they waited. Why they waited so long to do that.
If Brock Purdy has an elbow injury, but he's a dynamic threat with his legs.
Yeah.
Okay, I could see maybe you leave him in, and they don't really know if he can't throw
but
it.
He ain't going anywhere.
But he was essentially just back there to hand the ball off, and it was pretty obvious the Eagles knew that.
That's a tough deal.
It's a bad look.
Right, it's not great.
It is what it is, right? Given this, it's always a possibility.
Because then when Josh Johnson gets dinged, I'm like, oh, they're putting Purdy back in the game.
Yeah. Couldn't even feel his arm, wrist, whatever. Yeah, it was. And like you said, it would have been one thing if this happened in a regular season game, but it happened in the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
And at that point, I didn't even really watch the rest.
I don't blame you. You weren't alone.
I had a lot of other things to do. I was like, I'll wait for the Chiefs-Bengals game,
which was well worth the wait there. Let's break. We come back. We're going to chat on the Senior Bowl. one of the top stories, honestly, around the Senior Bowl is with Cody Mauch. I'm not kidding, folks. It's a heck of a tease to get you to come back. We're back after this on Hot Mike on WDAY Extra at Inforum.com. Tell me that people don't love their football. The ratings are in for the AFC Championship game, which obviously was the better of the two. 53 million people watched Kansas City beat Cincinnati. That's up 11% from last year's game between the same two teams. They had the early window last year. They played the 2 o'clock game, which went to overtime last year. It peaked at 59 million viewers, which I imagine was right at the end of the game. That's the highest rated television show, period, other than the Super Bowl. That tells you exactly, going back to how we started this conversation, people love their football.
That they do.
That's
that
crazy.
They do. That's I mean, those, and for people that don't know, I mean, you compare, I know it's not even comparable, like, a good FCS game gets like 1 million, maybe 1.5,
yeah.
And I know that's not really comparison, but that's what the NFL is putting out. Because even NBA games, if you look like NBA ratings, there's like 2 million.
Yeah,
maybe.
it ain't that.
It's not even close.
No, even the NBA Finals, you're not going anywhere close to that. Of the top 50 most watched television programs, not just everything on TV. 48 of them were football games. The other 2 were the Olympics this past year of 2022.
Insane.
Tells you exactly where we're at. And that's not just all NFL. It was a couple of college games were in there as well with the CFP playoffs. We mentioned when you got in, Senior Bowl week is underway. One of the big storylines is honestly surrounding Cody Mauch. I interviewed Cody on, Thursday, when he was in California getting ready to leave for Alabama. And I asked this question, almost an innocuous question about him potentially looking at other spots. Let's play that quickly here.
Preparing to do both tackle and guard this coming week?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm expecting to play, I think, all 4 positions, and I've been snapping the ball, too, in case they throw me in at center. You never know. So kind of getting ready to do it all. Maybe they'll throw me out and do some tight end. I wouldn't mind that.
It's been a little bit since you caught the ball, but you're telling you got hands, man, right?
Hey, that's still my strong suit, I think.
So, Kyle, then the story comes out from Dane Brugler, who's one of the great NFL draft minds. His top key question, what position or positions will North Dakota State's Cody Mauch play throughout the week? It says Mauch is developed into an All-American left tackle at North Dakota State. So where will the potential top 50 pick play during Senior Bowl practices? Mauch was exclusively a tackle in college, but his arms are expected to measure under 33 inches, so teams are hoping to see him on the interior, more so to gauge how he handles the move than because he can't stay on the outside. However, I wonder if his best long-term position might be center. Mauch doesn't have any in-game or practice experience there, but has practiced snapping on his own. With his talent and tenacity, it isn't a stretch to say he could be the best center from this draft class if he commits to the new position. He was the 43rd pick in my most recent mock draft. What do you make of that? Now, you know this better than anybody because you did switch spots. You played defensive end, you moved to linebacker. How is this a difficult thing to do after your college days?
It is. It's difficult, especially going into a game like this and just not knowing. I had, some anxiety of going to the Shrine Bowl, and they were just gonna be like, "All right, you're playing linebacker today. Here's the playbook. Figure it out." And it's like at this, we've talked a lot about learning a new defense and being like a different language. And it's like I was worried I was gonna go there, and I think for a while they might have played around with it, but then ultimately I played defensive end in the game, which I was happy to because I was like, I don't care if I move positions, but I don't want to do it during this week. I'm here for 5 days. Yeah. I'd like to do something where I feel comfortable, and can show off for the scouts.
And you got people watching you every single thing you're doing.
What I make of what you just read though is, and this is what everyone already knows, Cody Mauch is a freak athlete. He's not just an offensive line. He is an athletic person, and you see it in the way he moves. You see it in the way he finishes people. It makes sense that he was a tight end. He came to NDSU as a tight end, and I'm not going to say I'm like an offensive lineman scout genius here, but I kind of agree with him. I think he could play anywhere. And it's not just him. Every NDSU offensive lineman that has come out of the draft pretty much has played everywhere. I mean, look at Cordell Volson. Yep. I know he played a little bit of guard a year ago at NDSU, but he was primarily a tackle. And all he did was start every single game for a team that went to the AFC Championship.
Right.
I think you could see a similar thing from Cody Mauch.
That's really interesting because that was, I wouldn't say a throwaway question I have for him. And then this story came out like, oh, okay, so this is going to be a thing to watch. The practices begin today. NFL Plus has it this afternoon, and then ESPN will have coverage over the next couple days. And I'm always fascinated. They always tend to find a guy. Quarterbacks get their due, but there's always a guy that stands out. He could very well be that guy this week at the Senior Bowl.
Well,
Christian certainly did last year.
Well, naturally, he has long red hair and missing
the cameras
two teeth.
are going to find him, right?
He's got it built in a little bit already.
Yep.
But it's going to go beyond that. It's going to because of
His
what he
play
can
on
do
the
with his
field.
play
Yep.
on the field. I think I think Dylan Radin's got like practice player
He
of
did.
the week.
Christian did last year. Yep.
Wouldn't be shocked if Cody Mauch got. I mean, it's just he's just one of those guys. Again, I talk a lot about mentality with offensive linemen because you have to have the right mentality if you want to play offensive line. It's not a glorious position all the time. He has it. You can just tell he has it. He loves playing the game of football. He wants to be out there. I truly maybe he does want to play tackle, but I don't think he cares. I think he just wants to go out there.
Yep.
And that's the right mindset coming into the situation that he's going to be in because you're going to get thrown some curveballs. I mean, at the combine, I did defensive line drills and then did linebacker drills. I don't remember, but I don't think I knew that going into it. It just kind of happened. At pro day, I ran fullback routes. You know, you just got to be prepared. You never know what's going to happen.
For Shrine Bowl week, and just obviously this ties into what we're talking about with Cody. Were you nervous? Were you excited? A little bit of both.
Yeah, I was nervous. I was nervous for sure. I think it's easy to look back on it now, but with hindsight, but like at the time, it's like this is the NFL. I didn't know if I was going to get drafted. I don't know if I was ever going to make a team. I didn't. This
might be it.
This is the most highly scrutinized job interview that. I don't want to say that there is all around, but like it is very highly scrutinized. It's something that you
no other job
about.
interviews are televised, man.
Exactly.
I can tell you that right now.
And it's a little bit intimidating. This is the NFL. This is a sport you've been watching since you were a little kid, and you admired all these coaches, these teams, these players, and now this kid from Little Schuyler, Nebraska, I have a chance. So yeah, there was definitely some nerves, some anxiety. It was such a whirlwind for me though, coming literally straight from the national championship game against Illinois State that, maybe it helped me a little bit because I just didn't have time to think about it. It was just, you're off to the next thing, and away we went.
I had talked with Cody about this because he got sat, but it's been 3 weeks since the title game that he went right from Frisco, flew the next day to California to Rep 1 to start training for the Senior Bowl. And you well know this as well. I mean, every scout is there. They're there for the practices. The game does not matter. I mean, which is crazy to say. Like, you could have had 4 sacks in the Shrine game. That wouldn't have, I can't say wouldn't have mattered, but it
might have a little bit.
But it still would have been inconsequential to what they talk to you, the interviews, and how you practice that week. And that's all it is for Cody this week, too.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. It's a little bit counterintuitive. I think the game matters more. But they're truly there. And I know I've said this before, but they're trying to confirm, I believe, what they think about you that they've already seen on film. And I think when you look at these games, it's always going to be more important for guys that came from the Group of 5 conferences, from the FCS or lower. If you play in the SEC or the Big Ten, they're going to look at you. Oh, he had a bad practice. He had a bad rep. It is what it is. That's just an off day.
Yes.
If you're from a smaller school, they look at it and go, they only thrived in college because they went against the lesser competition.
Well, see, I was going to ask you this because you had a distinct advantage over some of the newer guys that are going through it. You played 4 FBS opponents. How big a deal is it for a guy like Noah Gindorf, Hunter Lipke, and Cody that they got that game with Arizona? That, remember, all the scouts were there. I was right next to Kyle, 2 guys from the Senior Bowl, watching all 3 of them when we were in Tucson.
And that's exactly why. Because that game's going to be weighted differently than the other ones. That's going to be the one that scouts are most interested in. Okay, you did it against FCS schools. Can you also do it against a school from the Pac-12? And right, wrong, or indifferent, that's just the way it's going to be. And I kind of understand it. Now, I've gone on record a lot. Like, there's a lot of good players in the FCS as well. And it's highlighted by there's a lot in the NFL. But at the end of the day, they're still going to look at Power 5 conferences a little bit differently, and that's just the way it goes.
Noah Gindorf told me he's got invited to the Combine. He's going to, obviously, he can't do most of the drills. He's still going to do the bench press and obviously go through the medical questions, which is going to be the biggest thing for him. But how big a deal is that still, to get the invite must tell you exactly what the scouts think of him. Kyle, he only played the 3 games this year.
I think that's the biggest takeaway I had from when I saw that he got invited. Is it was that's impressive. That's that shows that there's the interest there for him. And once again, like his biggest question mark isn't necessarily going to be what he can do physically throughout this process because he can't do anything. It's they're going to have a bunch of questions about the injury,
right?
Especially because of kind of the way it happened. He had the injury, had surgery, didn't really take, had to go back.
Again, right.
That's going to be what they're worried about. So they're going to have a lot of questions for him. He's going to have a mountain of paperwork to fill out multiple times. Every injury you could ever think of that you have to go back and try and remember it all.
Same with Lipke as well, too.
Well, yeah, for sure. But just the fact that you can kind of get that process, I don't want to say out of the way, but you can get it started and you can get in front of these teams. You can explain everything. You can do it face to face. They don't have to just guess on what they think your health is.
Are you upset the bench press wasn't televised when you did that at the combine?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. It's probably
they never show that.
I
one,
like
man.
it. I've always liked it. I've always liked watching that one, and it's one that you don't have to do in your underwear. So it's a little dressed a little more.
Again,
normal.
no job interviews are
like
televised, or you're in your underwear.
I remember people telling me like you're gonna feel like a piece of cattle getting brought out for auction.
And they're exactly right,
like,
weren't they?
When we did the weigh-ins, they bring you out and it's like a stadium, and someone brings you up, they measure you, yell out your height and weight. And
move on, on to the next guy.
Yeah. Weird.
It is weird. And now it's televised, man. That's the whole thing.
It's part of it.
It's just it's a fascinating deal. My last thing for you before we go, this is when it really took off for Christian Watson last year. I wonder if it could have that same impact for Cody. Cody's a known commodity. I think Watson wasn't as much. We knew about him, but then he had the unreal week at the Senior Bowl, and boy, things took off from there.
Yeah, I think it was different for Christian because he had the really good year in 2019. The stats were okay, but just given the offense, like he hadn't blown up.
Right.
And like you said, we knew. Like,
I'm convinced Todd McShay had never heard of him when he got to Mobile last year.
And I think he might have had the shock factor because of that. And then they looked at his looked at they start look at some his leaping ability, and then he runs a 4.3, and it's like, okay, boom, he kind of blew up. I don't know if an offensive line. Sure, offensive line can. If Cody Mack goes and runs like a 4.78 or something, they're like, "What? He's this big and he can run that fast." But for him, it's more. What can I do in the Senior Bowl? What can I do to prove that I can play at this level? And like you said, I think he is. I don't know if anyone was talking about Christian Watson being a top 45, top 50
not this time last year.
Time.
No way. You're exactly right.
Where they're already saying that about Cody Mack. So if he can confirm some things, if he can wow some people at the combine with some certain numbers, who knows? Who knows? Might be a late first round pick. Who knows?
That'd be something
possible,
else,
right? I mean, you never would have thought that with Christian, like you said a year ago, and then he was the second pick in the second round?
He was the 34th overall pick. Yep.
So you just never know what's going to happen throughout this process.
You want to put an under over on his 40 time yet? Or are we going to wait on that?
Yeah, let's wait on that. I'm gonna have to watch some film, put my scouting hat on. And
if he were to get anywhere like 4.8, 4.9, is that
anything under 5? Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't
know how you gauge that for offensive linemen,
like,
right?
Do you really care how fast? I mean, it shows your
but
athletic
it
ability.
affected you though, right?
Well, for sure, yeah. But offensive linemen aren't exactly sprinting very often. Now they do look. They are going to want to know: can he pull?
Right.
You still got to be able. Can you climb to the second level and get to a linebacker?
Right.
Can you get out on a screen and block a deep?
Correct.
So it still does matter. It's just probably a little bit less than other positions.
I could do this all day, man. I really appreciate it. It's great to see you back here. We look forward to doing this as the draft season is underway. Thanks for doing it, man. Kyle Emanuel joining us each and every Tuesday to chat football, which, as we remind everybody, it never really ends around here especially. We'll take a break. We'll get caught up in a couple things. Remember, Walker Demers coming up at 10:45. South Dakota freshman, Grafton native, as the Coyotes get set to match up with the Bison coming up on Thursday. We'll take a break. Hot Mic continues after this. Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mic here on a busy Tuesday. Our thanks to Kyle Emanuel for joining us. Walker Demers coming up here in just a few minutes. I was just perusing the NFL Plus website. Not necessarily familiar with that, but for you football nerds, it's pretty good. You have you could go through and watch almost every old Super Bowl, like going all the way back. Super Bowl 14 looks like their first one. Rams Steelers. That's before my time. Let's see. 49ers Bengals, Super Bowl 16. I love going back and watch the old broadcasts as the TV nerd that I am. Super Bowl 20. It's the first one I really remember. That was the Bears and the Patriots. That was the Super Bowl Shuffle Bears. They won by 1 million. So that's fun to go back, look at the graphics, look at how the game was produced. That's a cool deal there. But according to the NFL's website, they are going to stream coverage of practice today on their website for the Senior Bowl. So for those that are anxious about that, Cody will play on the national team. They practice in the morning at 11:30. That's available on NFL Plus. So we'll keep you posted on that. And, of course, any video comes our way, we'll pass it along on the news and certainly here on our show, because it is one of the bigger stories that's going to be talked about over the next few days down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. Real quick, I had a couple of emails I wanted to catch up on from yesterday, from Ann earlier today, on the conversation of 3 classes and what this means and how this is going to affect things going forward. Let's see if I can track down just a couple here. Dom, I'm all for the 3-class system, but Langdon and possibly Hillsborough will drop the co-ops with Munich and Central Valley if there's a chance they can get under 100. Do you think that will happen all over? Is there not an option for some? It's possible Central Valley could go again on its own, but I'm not sure. Appreciate the email. I don't know about that. Central Valley co-opted for a reason. They were losing students that I think that co-op is pretty secure. I think they would like to stay where they're at. Langdon area had more Munich. I mean, they've got, I think, 4 separate towns that make up that co-op. Again, they've had pretty good success since they've all come together. I would be hard-pressed to think that they want to go out on their own. But again, that was one of the original thought processes from the focus group on wanting this to go, because they thought some of the co-ops could dissolve and towns that used to have teams could have teams again. The issue is, I don't think those towns have repopulated. There's a reason why they needed a co-op in the first place. I think Tanner Purinton said it perfectly yesterday. The bigger cities are getting bigger, and the smaller cities are getting smaller in North Dakota. That's just the fact of population right now. And I don't think the hope of getting old teams, old schools, their teams back, I don't think that is realistic here. I think you have your co-ops that maybe I'm wrong on that, but just seeing how, especially in Class B, where you were looking at how teams are forced to come together. I'll look right here down in our own backyard. Wyndmere, Lidgerwood, and Hankinson had to co-op all 3 for girls basketball simply because the numbers are as low as they are. Does that mean if they go to 3 classes that Hankinson get his own team again? I don't know. One would think that probably may help if Hankinson knows we don't have to play Kindred and Central Cass anymore and we don't have to get our brains beaten in by 70, then maybe I'll come out and play basketball again. Maybe. That's the counterpoint to it. But I would be surprised if you see some of the co-ops that have happened and have come about over the last 10, 15 years to dissolve, especially ones that have been successful. It's another thing if you haven't been good, then maybe you look at going elsewhere, if you possibly could. But Langdon and Hillsborough have been dynamite in several sports since they have co-opted in with other towns. I would be surprised if you're going to willingly take a step back from being successful. There's a lot to be said about winning, too. I think that still helps. We'll take a break here. Our final one. We come back. We'll be joined by Grafton's Walker Demers in the middle of her freshman year at the University of South Dakota and starting for the Coyotes. We'll see her on Thursday here in Fargo. Hot Mike will wrap up after this on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com. Welcome back, everybody. Wrapping up our Tuesday Spectacular. Busy show here today. We end with a flourish on this Tuesday morning. As we mentioned, the Bison women's basketball team back at home on Thursday night, starting a huge stretch. University of South Dakota and South Dakota State will be at the Shack. And our next guest making a return trip to North Dakota. She was a heck of a player at Grafton High School, left Grafton early, graduated early, enrolled at the University of South Dakota, and now playing and starting for the Coyotes, who we'll see here on Thursday and then in Grand Forks on Saturday. Our pleasure to welcome back Walker Demers to our show. Just out of lab. She's got another class here in about 10 minutes, so I'm not going to keep her too long. It's great to see you. Congrats on everything that's gone on here in your freshman year. Does it seem like a whirlwind that's happened here over the last 7 months?
Oh, yeah. The experience has been so quick. It's been filled with a lot of excitement.
Tell me about arriving on campus, trying to figure out your role. You got a new coach as well. What this has been like adjusting to school?
Yeah, so, I mean, it was early June when I came, probably 5 days after I graduated. So it was scary at first for just a 17-year-old to come into college and living on her own. But just having my coaches and my teammates by my side has really helped. I couldn't ask for a better support system. So even through my parents, it's been awesome.
What was the welcome to Division I moment? What do you remember? Was it a practice or a game? What was it for you?
I'd have to say it was my second week practicing this summer. I was doing a drill with my teammates, and I got elbowed in the eye. I don't know if you could see it, but I got stitches. I had 6 stitches there. I had to stop practice. I got rushed to the hospital.
Oh, man.
It was a welcome gift, but and I think I had to miss a week because I had a concussion a week after that. But
holy cow!
I feel like that after that, it went pretty smoothly, I'd say.
So that's the welcome to. You show it to us again, by the way. You can still see it a little bit. Holy cow!
Right here.
Look at that. And that was from a teammate.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's a heck of a way to start Division I hoops. But we're following from afar up here, and you're getting in, you're playing. Tell me about that, because we were just visiting off air. I don't even know if you thought you'd be playing as much as you did early on.
Yeah, so I definitely thought that my role would be less, but with injuries and just, everything else, COVID, I've had to step up a little bit more, which is exciting for me. I appreciate my coaches trusting me to step up in that role too. So
now over the last little bit here, you've started, 6 of the last 7 games. Describe that and now being entrusted into the lineup and being asked to produce even more.
Yeah, so at first it was a little bit intimidating, as I'm sure it would be, but I'm really starting to fill my role and, expect it instead of just, thinking it's a transition to, coming off the bench and just having bench points compared to having starting minutes and starting points and just filling that role.
Well, and the crazy part is you could be right in the middle of your senior year of high school. I'm sure you've thought about that. I mean, can you describe that, though, of how wild this really seems to be?
Yeah, it's crazy to think that could happen. I look back on, obviously, Grafton, I watch them still. So I'm just wow, that could be me. How different would it be if I was there? Stuff like that. But no, I couldn't imagine it any other way.
And that would be my next question. It doesn't seem it, just visiting with you and seeing you play, there are no regrets about what you decided to do here.
Definitely not. No, I wouldn't change a thing.
And obviously, I know you've had this week probably circled for a long, long time. Describe the excitement of coming back to North Dakota. Fargo first and then Grand Forks on Saturday.
Oh, no, I'm super excited. I mean, the Betty is basically home. It's my backyard. So just seeing all my family and friends, it's going to be an amazing experience. So
how much have you still talked? I'm sure you still do all the time with your high school teammates and friends, just thinking how wild this is. Is that pretty constant still?
Oh yeah. I talk to them fairly often on the phone, but I mean, I've only seen them probably once since season started, and that was over break. And we got like a 4-day break, so it was pretty quick. But just getting to meet up with them again is going to be super fun. I'm so excited.
Tell me, Walker, about the physicality of playing as a big playing in the Summit League. What is it like on a night-to-night basis?
Oh, it is definitely it's an increase of physicality from college to high school, and I'm sure people even watching you can see that. But I feel like I've adjusted to it well. I'm just getting used to that, and like having my teammates push me in practice every single day has really helped me for the game situations.
Stepping in, and I know the South Dakota State game certainly didn't go the way you wanted, but seeing that, you've played in some big environments. What was that like to play at Frost Arena against the Jackrabbits?
Oh, it was a good experience. It almost brought me back to, the state tournament, the state championship, all the fans. No, it's a good environment. I love to see all our fans at our games too. Just unbelievable experience.
Well, just describe that for people that don't know. A game in Vermilion, it's a big deal. It's a big deal when your team is playing. What is game day like in Vermilion?
Oh yeah, game day is awesome. You can hear fans at all times of the game, either chirping the other team or, always on our side. It's awesome.
I wrote a note down to myself to ask you about the dog. How is the dog after you won the state? The story was, for people that don't know, that your parents said you could get a dog if you didn't foul out of the state championship game, but you did. But the dog still came. Is that so? You got to give us the update.
Oh yeah, he so before, when I first got him, my parents weren't a huge fan of him, but obviously him being there now, they love him. They bring him every time they come up here. I get to see him fairly often, but he's doing good. My dad's probably his biggest fan.
So your parents are taking care of him now. That's what you're telling me?
Oh yeah.
Just before we let you go on, because I know you got to get back to class, on this last, just even we're getting near tournament time, the last 365 days, the last game you played in high school obviously was a state championship game. To now where you're at, just can you describe what this last year has been like?
Yeah, it's definitely been a growing year for me personally. I feel like mentally and physically, I've been in the weight room all summer. I'm still in the weight room. Just being able to grow my skills with my coaches and, getting to have all these new relationships with, fans, my team. It's been amazing, and I honestly cannot wait for this year.
What's the rough estimate of how many family friends you're going to have at the stands either on Thursday or Saturday?
I'd say probably for Saturday, I'd say around 30.
Nice.
I don't know, probably around like 20 for NDSU, but we'll see.
Thanks so much for squeezing us in. I know you got to get to class. I appreciate you doing this and look forward to seeing you on Thursday, okay?
Thank you.
Good to see you again. Walker Demers, USD freshman forward, joining us in between classes in Vermilion. Her Coyotes will be here on Thursday to take on the Bison. Looking at her stats here, obviously we mentioned started now 6 of the last 7 games, had 10 points at Denver, 8 against Omaha, 9 against the Jacks, 7 in her last game in the loss to St. Thomas, and her minutes have gone up. And I remember Lynette Johnson and I talked about, we saw Walker play in 2019, so 4 years ago. So when she was a 8th grader, when Grafton had a dynamite team that year, and she was going to be a force. And of course, she turned out to be quite that, including they made it to the state championship game in 2020, lost to Langdon. They won it in 21, made it to the state championship game in 22. So she's played a bunch of basketball that, at least for our viewers, have seen, and excited to see the Division I player she's turned into there. Let's get you ready for what to watch before we get out of here quick. Mention the Senior Bowl recap is coming up tonight. NFL Network at 7. Lakers Knicks on TNT at 6:30. And how about those Kansas Jayhawks? You thought Eric Fennell would get out of here with that. They take on Kansas State tonight on the Plus. Thanks to our guests today. If you missed any of it, you can podcast it later today at Inforum.com. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow on Hot Mike on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com.